Good day, everyone. I am Hafizah from the Department of Petroleum Engineering, University Technology Petronas. I am the course instructor for Introduction to Oil and Gas Industry and Sustainable Development. I will be presenting a topic on marine pollution control and management. Before I begin the session, these lecture materials are for the Marine Coastal and Delta Sustainability for Southeast Asia MARE project. MARE is an international joint project between institutions from Malaysia, Germany, Italy, Vietnam, and Estonia, co-funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. You may contact me for further information through my email. The following is the lecture contents for this topic, so we will be learning on the impacts of oil and gas activities on the marine environment, awareness of the effects of hydrocarbon exploration, and an overview of the rules and regulations in marine pollution management. Now, let's start with the first subtopic on the impacts of oil and gas activities on the marine environment. The figure shows a penguin covered in oil from an oil spill off the coast of South Africa Robben Island in South Africa. The oil and gas industry in Malaysia is mainly focused on upstream and downstream operations. For upstream operations, the well-known locations are offshore Terengganu, offshore Sabah, and offshore Sarawak. The oil and gas operations in these offshore locations have a high impact on the environmental systems. They may influence species populations or ecosystems such as biodiversity, biomass, and productivity. So in general, the potential impacts of the project are assessed through Environmental Impact Assessment (EIA), which involve the identification, prediction, evaluation, and mitigation of impacts before starting the project. This slide lists the major standard components of an EIA, which includes the description of the proposed development or the proposed project, the description of the environment, the description of potential impacts on the environment, the proposed mitigation plan, and lastly, the identification of knowledge gaps. There are three main phases during the oil and gas activities that could impact the marine life. They are the exploration phase, production phase, and the commissioning phase. Seismic surveys are one of the most common operations during the exploration phase. It could harm the marine life by underwater sound, light emissions, and increased vessel activity. The sound waves emitted from these surveys can be detected as far as 4,000 kilometers away from the vessel. Some reports highlighted that the effects of this sound pollution are disruption of behavior, masking of sounds, physical injury, and etc., especially for the marine mammals. An example of the impact of this pollution is shown in the figure on the left-hand side, which shows abundance of dead fishes found due to the oil spills. Another example of marine pollution can be seen on the next photo of a sea turtle which is covered by oil spills. Artificial lights such as electrical lighting and gas flares during the oil and gas operations can potentially affect ecological processes in the upper ocean. The impacts on habitats and fauna also enhances as the infrastructure installations starts. The placement of infrastructure on the seafloor, such as anchors and pipelines, will directly disturb the seabed. This is because as the anchors are set, they are dragged along the seabed, consequently damaging benthic organisms and leaving the anchor scar on the seafloor. Other than anchors on seabed, the laying of pipelines can also alter the local seabed conditions. For instance, corrosion and leakage of pipelines also contributes to the risk of exposing deep sea fauna to potentially damaging pollution. Chemical toxicants and physical disturbance can potentially impact the seabed communities. So there is a video on what happens after an oil spill which you may watch later in your own time. Now let's move to the second subtopic on the awareness on the effects of hydrocarbon exploration. A case study of Deepwater Horizon tragedy will be presented in this subtopic. Deepwater Horizon oil spill, which is also called as the Gulf of Mexico oil spill, is the largest marine oil spill in history. The map on the right-hand side shows the location of the Deepwater Horizon oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico. The tragedy was caused by an explosion on the 20th of April in year 2010. On the night of April 20, there was a surge of natural gas that blasted through a concrete core where it killed 11 workers and injured 17 workers. The cores were too weak to withstand the pressure since they were composed of a concrete mixture that used nitrogen gas to accelerate curing. This slide presents the timeline of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, where the construction began in December 1998 in South Korea. On 20th of April 2010, 11 people are reported missing and approximately 17 were injured. The blowout preventer was also failed to activate to prevent the release of the crude oil. 2 days later, on 22nd of April 2010, Deepwater Horizon rig sinks and the search and rescue operations begin. On 25th of April 2010, the well is found to be leaking 1,000 barrels of crude oil per day. Louisiana declares a state of emergency 4 days later as the leakage increased and the oil slick approaches land. We can see that the oil spill does not only affect the marine environment but also the economical sector, where fishing activities at the affected area of the Gulf of Mexico were banned. It was reported that the cleanup cost hits to a total of 10 billion USD and a total of 4.4 million barrels of oil were spilled into the Gulf of Mexico. There are a couple of videos available in separate files which you may refer to later. Finally, we have reached to the third subtopic, an overview of the rules and regulations in marine pollution management. This is the map of Malaysia, which is surrounded by the South China Sea. The Straits of Malacca at the west coastal side of Malaysia is most susceptible to vessel-based marine pollution due to the heavy volume of shipping that uses oil and grease. Law can be considered as an important means of controlling pollution and has been relied on by Malaysia in dealing with marine pollution. The Environmental Quality Act 1974 is the main legislation used in Malaysia to control marine pollution. This act is the most comprehensive legislation to deal with environmental protection and marine pollution control. Under EQA 1974 Section 25, a fine of up to Rm 100,000 or imprisonment of up to 5 years is imposed to those who discharge effluents into inland waters without any license. Under EQA 1974 Section 27, a fine of up to Rm 500,000 or imprisonment of up to 5 years or both is imposed to those who discharge or spilling any oil or mixture containing oil into Malaysian waters. Next, according to EQA 1974 Section 29, a fine of up to Rm 500,000 or imprisonment of up to 5 years or both is imposed to those who discharge environmentally hazardous substances, pollutants, or waste into the Malaysian waters. However, no defense are allowed for this case. Referring to EQA 1974 Section 34B, a fine of up to Rm 500,000 or imprisonment of up to 5 years or both is imposed to those who discharge oil tanker sludges and oil-water mixtures such as ballast water into the Malaysian waters without written approval from the relevant authority. Under EQA 1974 Section 34A, activities including oil and gas field developments, and construction of offshore and onshore pipelines will require the submission of the EIA report to the relevant authority for approval. The enforcement power of the Environmental Quality Act 1974 is restricted only to the Malaysia's territorial water of within 12 nautical miles. The control of marine pollution that occur beyond that territorial limit and up to 200 nautical miles of Malaysia's maritime territory is regulated by the Exclusive Economic Zone Act 1984. The Maritime Enforcement Agency Act 2004 aims to provide for the establishment of a sole marine enforcement agency to ensure the safety and security of the Malaysian maritime zone. It is also responsible for the control and prevention of maritime pollution and is given the power to enforce law and order under any federal law of Malaysia. We have reached the end of the topic. In summary, the marine environment is exposed to pollution contributed by its surrounding and in this context, the oil and gas activities. Therefore, it is of utmost importance that the stakeholders in specific and the community in general to be aware on the effects of hydrocarbon exploration. In order to protect the marine environment and control the pollution, we need to comply with the law that has been set to conserve the sustainability of marine ecosystems. With that, I thank you for your time and attention. Have a good day, everyone.